We do also have these pace charts here on the training plan. There's three. So there's a 13.1 pace chart for half marathoners, a 26.2 pace chart for marathoners. Those look very similar and work very similarly. There's also a run walk pace chart, which comes from the Jeff Galloway book on the run walk methodology. And so you can kind of choose from these or use these as references to figure out what's going to be your best paces to train at. The marathon and half marathon pace charts, these have a lot more data on them. They're the same. Basically, the biggest difference is what we're using is the index time. So on the half marathon pace chart, we have a series of half marathon goal times starting at an hour and 10 minutes and going back to 3.5 hours. Um, and then on the marathon chart, we're just the bold is over here in this other column, and we're using times that correspond around marathon times. So what we can do here is use this a few different ways. So one, we can use it to figure out what might be a reasonable half or full marathon time to expect. So maybe you've recently run a 5K and you ran it in 25 minutes. So you'd come to this 5K column for race time equivalents, and 25 minutes is between the 24:42 and the 25:15. So we're somewhere in these two. And then it's going to give you half marathon time somewhere between 1:53:39, 1:56:11 is what you'd be shooting for, or a marathon time between 3 hours and 55 minutes or 4 hours is what you could reasonably expect to run based on all these pace charts, which are built off of years and years of data and physiological research. Um, and so this is giving you a good idea of, okay, so I ran a 25-minute 5K. I could reasonably expect to run a 3:55 to a 4 hour marathon. The other way you can use this is to work backwards and say, you know, I'm really hoping to break 3 hours for the marathon. That's my goal. I want to qualify for Boston. I want to run sub 3. And then looking at these corresponding times and seeing if this in any way seems reasonable. And so if your goal is to run a sub 3 marathon and you've previously run a 19-minute 5K and a 38, 30, 10K and something in the ballpark of this half marathon time, then yeah, 3 hours is probably a reasonable goal for you to shoot for. But if your 5K PR is 22 minutes and none of your PRs or recent race times are in the ballpark of these corresponding times, then this 3 hours is quite possibly a little bit of an overreach. And maybe you should be setting your goal somewhere else, get a marathon under your belt, and use that as a bridge to then build to a further future marathon that you would then run successively faster. Um, so you can use it either by looking at recent times, where would that give you as a predictor for a half or a full marathon time, or taking what you have as your goal and doing a reality check by using these corresponding paces. So let's say we now know what our goal is and we've confirmed that it's reasonable. And let's say that our goal is to run the marathon in 4 hours and 30 minutes. So now as we structure our training, we're going to look over here at these paces. So we get our easy pace, 10:56 to 12 minutes per mile. And this is what you want to do the bulk of your long runs at and your easier or recovery runs throughout the week at. And so there's a range here. It's over a minute. Some days or some distances of easy runs, you might be closer to that 11 minute. Other days you might be up more closer to that 12 minute. And this can help you figure out which of our Sunday training team pace groups to train with. So the 10:50 to 11:10 group might might be a reasonable option here, or the 11:20 to 11:40 group might also be an option here, or the 11:50 to 12:10 group. So you have a few different groups that you could choose from, or potentially even float around between throughout the season for your easy runs. Then we've got marathon pace. So a 4:30 marathon is 10 minutes and 17 seconds per mile. So that's what you would want to use if you were doing tempo runs at marathon pace or doing some race pace work built into your long runs to get some exposure to what that pace feels like. We also have half marathon pace, which is going to be faster at 10 minutes per mile. And some of the workouts on the training plan do call for running either at half marathon pace or at marathon pace. So this is where you'd find what those paces are. A lot of the workouts on the training plan call for running at threshold pace. And that's something that is quote unquote comfortably hard or comfortably challenging. It's hard. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it's a sustainable hard effort. So you could do this for maybe 45 minutes continuously in a hard race. But after doing it for 40 plus minutes, it's going to get really uncomfortable. But our training plan calls for doing this in shorter bouts, often from 5 minutes to 10 minutes in length, periodically longer. And so your threshold pace would be 9:22 per mile. And it doesn't have to be exact. So you'd want to be in the range of that. So somewhere in the 9:15 to 9:30 per mile ballpark. Interval pace and repetition pace we don't use particularly frequently in our variety of the training plan that we shared for this. You could incorporate them into half or full marathon training. We just haven't really built them into many of our workouts. There are some fartleks on the training plan that do call for bits of running at these paces, but there's short amounts of running. But these give you ballparks of what those paces would be. Interval pace is something that you could do for, say, 10 to 15 minutes consecutively in a race environment. And then repetition pace is something that's more in the general ballpark of your mile pace. So when you're looking to run strides, repetition pace could be a good benchmark for what to try to average your strides around. And so that's this general framework for how these work. You can use these as a tool to figure out what pace to be running at on different days. We've got this blue, different shades of blue highlighting or blue going into lavender here. And those talk about how your easy pace correlates to your marathon pace. So everything here faster than a 5:10 marathon or a marathon pace of 11:49 per mile and faster, your marathon pace is faster than your easy pace. So your easy runs are going to be slower than your marathon race pace. In this ballpark, from a 5:15 marathon to a 6:15 marathon, your marathon pace is in the zone of your easy run pace. And it starts sort of at the faster end of the zone at 5:15 and comes to the tail end of the zone at 6:15. But your marathon pace is going to be similar to your easy run pace. And then for a 6:20 marathon and on back, your easy run pace is actually going to be faster than your marathon pace. And that we'll see here for half marathoners as well, 2:35 and faster for a half marathon. Easy pace is slower than half marathon pace. 2:40 to 3:10, they're roughly the same or overlapping. And then a 3:15 half marathon and on back, your easy pace is going to be faster than your race pace. So that can just be helpful to know throughout your training.